everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Content Culture. It's your girl, Tomi.
And Nicole.
And
Tomi.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Oh. Switch up. Were you about to ask how my weekend was?
I was, but I guess we should welcome them to Content Culture, shouldn't we?
I guess so. Welcome. Here we are. And you know what? For the first time, we can say our weekends are pretty similar. I could...
Yes.
I could guess. Yeah, this weekend, Nicole and I, and also Amanda from Sequence and Sales, shout out, and Ayana from @Ayana Gabrielle Lage. Little shout outs for my girls here. We were all together in Atlanta for the weekend, having a nice girls trip, and it was a lot of us meeting each other for the first time. I had never met Ayana before, but I obviously have met Nicole and Amanda previously from a reward style conference thing. But it was just nice to be able to meet up with everyone after being friends for so long online, and there was no stranger danger, so that was good.
Yeah, that's always my fear. I'm like, no one got taken. We had a great time.
Yep. I don't know about you, but my fear is also too like meeting up with people and thinking that they like put on this personality also for the gram or like online. So and then when you get in front of them, they're like actually super boring.
I was worried about that when we met. I was like, is this going to be not like you, but I was like, am I going to feel like different than I feel online? Or like, you just don't know. Are we going to like vibe the same way? And
I think it's a lot easier to like put on this persona when you're like not in person. It takes a lot less energy. So I can see it from that point of people just being like, yeah, I don't have it in me to give what the girls need right now.
Right. But that didn't happen this weekend. So
we had lots of good Mexican food and just like drove around Atlanta, and I'm already planning our next adventure, so I'm ready for it.
Glad we're on the same page. I was like, so where are we going next?
Right. Bora Bora, sponsor us.
You know,
just kidding. We don't got Bora Bora money, okay?
But if they want to sponsor us, they.
But if they want, right.
You know, we're ready.
Precisely.
I have to tell you the funniest story.
I was about to ask because I saw this on your stories, and I'm like, what are you about to try and share here for the lucky listeners?
Okay, so last night I was watching The Bachelorette, as I do every week.
Sure.
And I happened to look down, open my email, and I got an email from Amazon saying, like, we're confirming your order.
Yeah.
But the thing is, I had not ordered anything. So I was like, weird. Mm-hmm. So I clicked on the order, and it was for it was a digital order for a movie. And I was like, I'm not watching a movie right now because I'm watching The Bachelorette, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, interesting. And I'm like, who could have my Amazon password other than me? And I had to rack my brain, and I realized that my ex-boyfriend from 3 years ago, I had signed into Prime Video at his apartment one time so that we could watch Jack Ryan, you know, like 3 years ago.
No.
And I am that he's the only person that had that password or would have been logged into my Amazon account. So I was like, it has to be him. But we have not spoken since we broke up. And I was like, so the petty part of me literally paused The Bachelorette so that I could reset my Amazon password, log myself out of everything.
As you should.
I don't know if that means he stopped mid-movie or what, but I was like, should I Venmo him for this? Like, we have not spoken at all. I was like, should I text him and be like, hey, or should I just like send him a Venmo request?
Well, first of all, what movie was it?
Movie was The Call, starring Halle Berry. I've never watched it.
Okay. Interesting. Starting to seem a little fetishy to me, but okay. Yeah, I don't know about the Venmo, but definitely that was the sign to make sure you're signing out of all those accounts.
And it was so weird because I feel like, I mean, we know we use our Amazon accounts all the time, but when I was like, you know, manually sign out of every account, everywhere I'm logged in with my Amazon account, it said 48 devices.
What?
I was trying to rack my brain last night after I did that because I was like, okay, like my laptop, my cell phone, maybe like my Amazon app versus like the web browser. But I was like, how are there 48 devices that I am logged into? I still don't know.
Yeah, I have maybe he found a way to like send it to other devices himself too.
Perhaps, but then I was like, I have never seen another Amazon order like in all this time. So I just assumed he had logged out of my account because we've been broken up for 2 years. I've never had an Amazon order that was like, this is not me.
Is it possible to have a Prime Video account without having Prime?
No, you have to have Prime to have the Prime Video.
So like how has he not also purchased something within this time? I guess like it's just weird that the one accident came from this point that your card popped up to the top as a payment option, you know, if it hasn't been used.
Yeah, I was signed in like on his smart TV.
Oh, okay. So maybe that's
yeah.
So maybe some other time it's like, oh, he's doing it from computer or phone. It just happens to connect by like maybe doing it straight from the TV. Oh, awkward.
And then I couldn't help but think like how horrified I would be in the reverse situation. Yes. You know, like if I bought something on my TV and then realized all of a sudden like, oh my gosh, I'm logged into my ex's like Netflix account or something, I would simply have to pass away. Mm-hmm. So I was laughing for a good 10 minutes.
Well, who broke up with who in this situation, if you don't mind me asking?
He broke up with me.
Okay, yeah, that's worse. I was gonna... My bad. I was gonna say, you know what? It's fine. Like, let it just be a thing.
I'm not gonna Venmo him over $3.99, you know, but it did make me laugh.
It really did. But speaking also of petty things too, I got a couple of DMs from our weekend in Atlanta because I gave this toast that you reshared on your stories. Mm-hmm. About the power of friendship, Black girl magic. And I want to get your opinions, friends, on if you think it's worse to be ghosted by a significant other or to be ghosted by a friend or potential friends, whatever, in the making. Because a similar situation happened to Nicole and myself. And I honestly was like, you know what? I think it's worse when it's friends, because at least in a relationship, you know that that's a possibility. I have just never encountered something like this at all, where you have a good group going, you're texting all the time, you're making plans to meet up in Atlanta.
Right.
And then, you know, falling off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I've always said I feel like friendship breakups are worse than relationship breakups. Mm-hmm. Because typically, unless it's the person that is the one, the relationship, it's going to hurt, but it's not going to be awful. You're going to move on eventually. But friendships are just so deep that it feels
they cut a little deeper.
Personal. So, yeah, it is such an odd feeling to just be ghosted by someone that you called a friend, to just like suddenly wake up one day and they've left your group chat.
And I want to give a little more context too. Like, obviously I'm not going to share names and be that messy, but so we were all like really good friends for a little over a year. Like, when I say talking every day, like that is not an exaggeration, like multiple times a day. And we did plan this trip because we all wanted to meet up and be together. And then as it just kept getting closer and closer to time, started to feel a little bit of tension, but it was just more of like, you know, maybe people are stressed with work or all this stuff. There are like a few disagreements, but it was never anything like, you know, crazy to where you could feel like there was some type of rift happening. And then like, I think maybe 2 or 3 weeks beforehand, just two people just bloop, popped out from the group. And then even the week of our trip, we found out that one person blocked us with no context or information. We reached out to them and said, hey, you know, like, what's any issues? Like, we would love to talk about this as adults. And they were like, no, we're good. I'm like, okay. All right. Fascinating. I just never in my life have I encountered something like that as an adult. Perhaps maybe high school, maybe middle school.
Yeah, I was going to say middle
high school.
What's interesting is in that 2 to 3 week window too, one of the people that was like deuces did ask for their like money for the trip back, which I think is an interesting debate. If you pay for a trip and commit to it and then all of a sudden decide you're not going, I would not feel like your money needs to come back. If it were a situation where like you had a death in the family and you couldn't make the trip, different, right?
Sure.
But if all of a sudden you were just like, I don't want to come anymore, I don't know. That would be tough for me.
Yeah, for me, I say no, just because when you're planning this as a group trip, like obviously you're doing it because of like financial reasons of like, oh, if we have X amount of people going, then this is how much everyone will have to pay. So by someone taking their money back or like canceling last minute when you've like already made these very concrete plans,
right?
Like it starts messing with other people's money, and that's when I have an issue. Okay. And again, I get it if there's like a mental health break you need, it's too much, you're stressed, whatever. But just let a person know, you know?
Yeah, I feel like in your mid-20s, you should be able to communicate with your friends, right? Like, so if you're like, I need to step back or like, I need a break from you, like that should be something you can say versus just like blocking their number and never giving any reasoning as to anything.
I would love to know. Maybe one of these days we'll get the answers, but not today.
Not today, but we would love to hear if you have had a friend ghost you out of the blue, just like disappear.
And what you did about it.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we jump into some news for this week?
Yeah, let's do it.
So you know that we had to talk about this, guys, because of course this popped up probably like the moment after we were done recording last week. But Britney Spears appearing in court to share her testimony about trying to end her conservatorship that she's been in for the past 13 years. Variety has a article that has the full 24-minute statement that she gave in front of the judge that I'm going to link in the show notes, because I definitely think you should either listen to the full audio or read it to see the extent of, quite frankly, the abuse that she's been going through for over a decade now. And I think any even casual onlooker to her Instagram could tell that something was very, very off about her. But I think it was because of, one, the need to be like, you know what, that's not my business. Like, I'm not going to try and, you know, say things that I don't know about. And then two, she was also always trying to share like, oh, I'm fine. You know, like, I'm okay. Like, don't need to worry about me, even though you could clearly see like something was off. And she shared in this testimony that she was embarrassed, which she had no reason to be, and sad and depressed from the situation that she was in, and kind of lying to herself, which in turn was like lying to the public of how bad it really was, and how her father, who is in control of her estate and finances, has really just been like taking a toll on like mentally everything that she's doing, and of how bad it was. What were your thoughts too when you were reading through some of this? Because I have some notes of all the like big points, but if you wanted to give any like overall feelings.
Yeah, it was wild to see this. I had this marked down on my calendar, and I had unfollowed Britney on Instagram probably about a year ago, because it was just getting, to me, it felt almost like voyeuristic. Like it wasn't something I should be watching.
Yeah, it was just very weird.
I felt uncomfortable to a degree because it felt so obvious that something was off, and she was saying it wasn't. So it was definitely interesting and like painful to hear her say like, I was telling the public I was fine and I wasn't, or I felt pressured to say these things. I felt like the testimony was pretty damning as far as like all of the information that came out. And it made me think a lot about, this is Britney Spears, a white woman, a white wealthy woman.
Yes.
I don't know a ton about conservatorships, but I have to think, if a conservatorship could do this to her, what could it do to an average person or a person with lesser means?
Precisely. And that's what was really scary to me. I was sharing that on stories, and I had like one or two DMs saying like, oh, it only happens to rich people. And I'm like, I know we say eat the rich and stuff all the time, but we should still care about these people who are locked into such unfortunate situations. And it happens to a lot of elderly people too, where, I mean, like, I know this was a movie, but it's very much based off of real life. I forgot what the name is. It's called, like, I Care a Lot. It was on Netflix. And it was about a woman who found ways to manipulate the system so that she could take advantage of elderly people and get controls of their estates, sell things back, build up all these like tiny corporation things and just keep making money. And that is something that very much happens in the US because of how broken the system is. And so I have a little timeline here of stuff from the moment. And this is from January 3rd of 2008 is when she first had like the incident where she was trying to fight and get her kids back physically from her ex, Kevin Federline, who was a dancer, and that's how they met. They were married. She does have 2 kids with him. And that was when like the police were called because she was like trying to force herself in and get them, and kind of had one of her first breakdowns. And that's when they started pushing for the conservatorship. And later that year it was put on to her father, who, in which I learned from the Framing Britney or whatever documentary. I didn't realize that they didn't have a relationship really prior to this. And that's what felt like very icky to me, is that I could not imagine how that must have felt as well, that you already kind of had this like abusive like past, and then for them to have such control over your life at this point now, when they haven't even been in your life, has to be even more like heartbreaking. So she's under this for like 3 years, and even during that point in 2011 she released her 7th album, Femme Fatale, which was a hit. Bars. She started off her years of Vegas shows in 2013. And then I also made a point here to write down that in 2019, her father attacked one of her kids, actually. Yes. And Kevin Federline filed a police report, and a restraining order, which, of course, if her father is around her all the time because he's in control of her estate, then I can only imagine how much more difficult that was for her to be able to have time to see her kids, because then she can't see them even more so now. And she has been dating the guy that she's with now for like since like 2017 or so. And I'm so thankful that he's in her life, because it seems like that he's like a very strong advocate for her. Right. And that she seems very happy with him, trusts him, all this stuff. And even though there is like a larger age gap type of thing, I think that he has been like a really good source of positivity for her, because in her statement, she shares that her entire family has been taking advantage of her, because up until this point, I really thought it was just her father doing stuff. But then to learn, she did not make a point to single out mom or sister. And I think that was very purposeful.
She said, I want the opportunity to sue my entire family.
Right.
So that I am looking at that now. Like, I was kind of with you before, where it's like, it's just dad. Maybe it's just brother. Now I'm like, it's dad, it's brother, it's mom, it's sister. Like, she is not happy.
Which Jamie Lynn Spears, her sister, who was the star on Zoe 101, absolutely loved it, gone too soon, came out with a little video on Instagram saying, like, of course I have always been a supporter of my sister, wipe away fake tears, and was saying, you know, I would support her if she wants to end her conservatorship, or if she wants to, like, go to Mars. Like, I'm going to support her regardless. And I'm like, what is it with white women in these false equivalencies for very for very serious situations, where it's like, oh, I'm not racist. Like, I wouldn't care if you're white, brown, purple, green polka dots. Like, I love you no matter what. No one's saying polka dots, ma'am.
It also is interesting because Jamie Lynn tried to say, like, I don't benefit from Britney at all. I don't benefit from this conservatorship. Well, there are records that show, like, money has been disbursed to Jamie Lynn Spears. So she has been benefiting financially from Britney Spears' estate.
And that she's in charge of the trust things for her kids right now, of, like, those finances. And as it stands, if Britney, with the mental state that she's in right now, like, who could even know, if she were to unfortunately, like, take those steps to physically harm herself, Jamie Lynn Spears would be the sole, like, heir to the money of her estate. So it's like, yeah, I think you are a little biased in this situation, ma'am.
Also, I found very interesting, like, not totally related, but related, Britney Spears' mother, Lynn, is a Roden & Fields consultant. I was digging yesterday and I was like, why does this say Lynn Spears RF? And then I was like, Lord help me. Like, you can't be, if you're stealing money from Britney Spears, you can't be out here in an MLM, honey.
They're really getting everyone out here. Is that really what it is?
Yeah, look it up. Look it up right now.
Oh, I can't do it. It hurts me too much. Some other things that were brought to light: that she was sent to a wellness clinic against her will multiple times, where she had no privacy or autonomy. She had to like change in front of people. She wants to be able to choose her own lawyer, which again shows how messed up the system is, because I'm like, you can't even like choose that for yourself. So the person who's in control of all of your life will also pick your lawyer. So if you are ever trying to get rid of them, you can't, because it's a conflict of interest. She wants privacy for her therapy. There are notes saying that she was like, yes, I will go to therapy and get, the help that I need, but I don't want it to be in a specific place because paparazzi are always out there. And so I'm coming out of here crying after having breakthroughs, and people are just taking photos of me at these low moments. And that's also, it's so infuriating, because if I'm like, if the point of this is to really help her get better and to be independent and to do all this stuff, then why are you constantly putting up these roadblocks that are a hindrance to her seeing any type of growth?
Well, it just seemed awful too, because she said, I would like to go to therapy less. Therapy can be very you're very vulnerable. And when you're unpacking issues, it can be emotionally painful. She said they make her go to therapy 3 times a week. And, I don't know her personal life, but I would imagine for even someone that is very mentally healthy and in a good place, that would be a lot of emotional weight to feel every week. So to do that, to not let her do it at her home.
Right.
And then she also talked about how they forced her to change her mental health medication to lithium, which is a bit controversial on its own. It's used normally in severe cases of bipolar disorder. It changes moods. It can make you loopy. It can make you suicidal. So for her to not have any input just seems like she doesn't have control of her body.
Yeah, I saw too that they only use that when the other medications don't work. Like you've exhausted every other option. But from her statement, it made it sound like she was completely fine, and at least was working well with the medication she was already on. So to go from that drastic change to her body, of course it's going to do a lot. And if you're on it for too long, it can cause permanent brain damage.
Right.
Other notes too I have that she thanked God when her psychiatrist passed away 2 years ago. She can't see her friends that she's previously made from AA and stuff, which of course is going to be another form of support, as an abuser always does, is they find ways to cut out all the people in your life so that you can only have them. And then I think what the biggest point was that a lot of people were talking about was the situation with her IUD, which they didn't put it in, she didn't talk about it in the court documents, but I think previous statements have shared that they made her put it in the first place. But they're not letting her take it out now. And she wants to get married to her boyfriend now of 4 years, wants to have kids with them. She's only 39. He's 27 now. They're full adults, and she's not able to have that autonomy and control over her body, despite making them millions and millions of dollars every single year. The fact that Britney Spears' net worth is only $60 million should tell people right now what an issue that is, because she was big before the streaming era, and when you're selling actual physical albums, that's real money, people. So
she toured. She toured. She did the Vegas residency. I'm like, she's pulling in money.
Yeah, she should be closer to what J-Lo's net worth and stuff is now, which I'm pretty sure is a couple $100 million. So it's sad to see that this is what's been happening to her, and I'm hoping that because of the publicity that they're really going to take it seriously this time. And knowing that they have nowhere to go because the public going to be on their ass, okay?
Right. I believe
the next free Britney here.
Yeah, I believe the next update in the trial is in July. The judge did say if she does not want you as her lawyer, you shouldn't be her lawyer. So I'm hopeful that she is going to get some of her freedom back, because hearing it was I feel like I watched the documentary earlier this year that the New York Times did, and I was like, It can't be it can't be as bad as we think. And then it was like, yeah, it is actually worse than we think.
Right. And the judge too also was saying like, thank you for being vulnerable and getting up here and sharing your testimony today, because I know it took courage. And so I'm like, I hope that was more than just like regular empathy that you have for your job, and that you really feel like this woman is struggling and stuck here and quite frankly fighting for her life. So yeah, only good thoughts and prayers and vibes to Britney. And hopefully this also starts to shed a light on that entire system, and that there can find ways that we can fix that, because my gosh, the amount of holes and stuff in that, we need to do better.
Right.
Oh, well, let us move on to something that also was causing a stir this week in the news, is that Black TikTokers are on strike, which I have quite frankly found hilarious.
Same.
If you didn't know, a lot of the trends that you see on TikTok are started by Black people. Now, I will say, let me back it up and say the dance trends. I don't know about all the other stuff that you guys be doing, because sometimes there's some crazy stuff happening here. And that ain't us, all right? But the dance trends very much started by Black people, and then they are, made very famous by people who are not Black, whether that's your Addison Rays, your Charlie D'Amelio's, and then they get the credit, they get the sponsorships, they get the screen time of going on late night shows and all that stuff, without any of that overflow going to the people who started the trends in the first place. So with Megan's new song, Thought Shit, when it came out, they said, guys, let's stand together, let's unionize this, and not create any type of choreography, and just let them see what's happening. It is the funniest thing I have ever seen. I don't know if maybe they're trying to be like, oh, it's a solidarity thing, and you don't want to be the person to come up with choreography so you don't look like the racist, or if they're truly like, oh, we can't come up with anything as good as what these people have been doing. But regardless, it's trash.
It is one of my favorite trends this year. I did see a white creator try and create a dance, and it hasn't really like caught on. So I think it's the same thing you said, where people are like maybe trying to be respectful of the fact that the Black TikTokers are on strike. But
yeah, don't break the line.
The song quite literally has instructions for how to dance to it, and
hands on your knees,
shake an ass, and it's not happening. So yeah. It's been great to see. We love to see it.
But I thought it would just be something that was like, for a short time period, whatever, started getting traction, been reported upon a lot of the major publications, and it sparked a lot of conversations about how much cultural capital the Black community has on pop culture as a whole, whether that comes to music, whether that comes to film influence, like anything of the sort. And yeah, it's pretty extensive. And I mean, even here in the influencing space, I know we've talked about it over the past year, of how it was nice in 2020 to feel like we were getting some type of like recognition for our hard work of having years of being in this industry and having, very good high quality content, all these things, and just not getting those same opportunities that everyone else was getting. And it can be frustrating. So to know that it's being highlighted now, we're seeing this inequity and trying to figure out ways of how we can level this playing field and make sure that we're represented and heard and paid our dues for doing this work. I'm all about it.
100%.
Okay. And you know what? Who else we had to pay our dues and give some recognition to? People out there, did you take the time and watch the Verzuz this weekend?
I did.
Between...
I personally did.
Yeah, because we were shaking some ass in a hotel room in Atlanta to Bow Wow and Soulja Boy, or as they like to affectionately be called now, Shad Moss and Big Draco, I think. But sorry, guys, it's not going to catch on. It's really not. It's always going to be Bow Wow. You should be thankful that we dropped the Lil at this point.
Right. I feel like that was a move. So I'm like just going to Bow Wow. Like, don't ask me to call you anything else.
Right. But it was so. I was like, oh my gosh, what a TBT moment. This felt very like childhood memories that I had repressed. I was telling them in the room, I was like, when Soulja Boy played Crank That, I remember being at school. We don't have dances, first of all, at my little Christian school, so that's a time for another Another episode. But we'd have these little like house parties and stuff. They'd be like, Tomi, get in the middle of the circle. Do that, crank that dance, Go, black girl, go. Dance.
Dance, Negro.
Dance, monkey, dance. And I'm like, okay, guys, you. And I can't even dance. That's the funny part. I can I've got rhythm, but that's it.
Yeah. You're on beat, which is half the battle for them,
But I absolutely loved it. It's probably one of my favorite verses. I think just because there's just so many memories tied to all of the music, a lot of college memories of being in the bars, and this stuff would come on, remembering like Mike and stuff with Bow Wow, and it was just all the bops.
It was taking me back to 106 in Park.
Ooh, yes. What a time.
What a time.
Which the children on Twitter were saying, we did not give 106 in Park enough credit for what they did. I'm like, no.
I saw that tweet, and it was, right. I want to point out, it was a non-Black person that tweeted that. It was a woman of color, but it was a not Black woman of color. So I was like, speak for yourself.
Yeah, because we were there.
We're watching it every day after school.
I was rushing home. I turned it on.
We were watching the countdown.
I hated her little annoying voice, but, it was great. It was great seeing all the countdowns. I remember watching Chris Brown run its performance and stuff on there and be like, oh my gosh. Of course, now we kind of, hate him. At the time.
Yeah. So I was like, this is a throwback to our youth,
Mm-hmm.
Jermaine Dupri was there. I mean, they brought out so many guests. They brought out
Omarion,
Lil Romeo. I don't know what he goes by now. DeBrat.
Yeah.
Dem Franchise Boys. I was like, I was living.
Pop Lock It, Drop It. When that came on, I was like, a moment in history. My knees have still not recovered. It's probably why I can't dance to any Megan Thee Stallion stuff right now.
Exactly.
And I also forgot too, of how influential Bow Wow was, regardless of teen artists. I feel like if there wasn't Bow Wow, then that was the blueprint. That's the reason why a Justin Bieber could happen at that young and cross over into all these mainstream things. It's we saw what he was able to do being on these TV shows, whatever, and how it is now. So have some flowers, Bow Wow.
Yeah, even the people we know that are associated acts, right? Like Chris Brown or Sierra, or he's been tied to so much of the culture, and I feel like he often gets overlooked for his impact. So I was like, good choice.
Put some respect on his name.
Yeah.
And some other people that we should highlight from this weekend. The BET Awards.
Oh, always a treat.
Did you watch them?
I did not watch them. I saw some clips on Twitter.
Okay.
Loved the Lil Nas X performance.
Yes. He looked so nervous at the beginning. But as it got to the end, I'm like, oh, that's why. Because he knew you were planning to do your kiss in front of a bunch of homophobic Black people.
And he paid tribute to Michael Jackson with a set design and everything, which was amazing. Who is giving visuals?
Correct.
Lil Nas X. We can talk about the outfit changes, but the visual, the music video, obviously very controversial. But I was like, who is giving us this level of music video visuals?
Even his red carpet looks. I'm like, men, this is the level, okay? Don't let your, insecurities, your whatever, your ties to masculinity stop
the toxic masculinity,
right? Yeah, stop you from going out there venturing and doing something fun. Aren't you tired of wearing just a black suit every time? Tragic.
All of his outfits were incredible. My jaw was on the ground. My jaw was also on the ground when I saw that video of Zendaya in her backyard. In the Versace outfit, paying tribute to our queen bee. I do love all of our members of the Hive.
Yes. I love how much that she stands for Beyonce, and she will not let you forget it. Even though I think this past week, Trick Daddy came out and was trying to say, oh, Beyonce doesn't deserve this hype. Sir, please, look at her still influencing the girls here.
Sir, the only song we know from you is Let's Go, which is a bop, but you've been irrelevant since then.
Who are you, Trick? Please.
Yeah, so, please don't even say her name. Thank you.
Trick, please. I thought it was funny that the award show started off with Kirk Franklin and collab with Lil Baby. And at first I didn't know he was out there, and so I thought it was Kirk Franklin's trying to do some autotune now, and I'm like, wow, T-Pain really is the blueprint for everything.
Influential king.
And we cannot leave out the Cardi B pregnancy reveal.
Woo!
I loved it.
I did too.
I loved the outfit with her little sparkles and her just showing off her little bump. And then the energy she was bringing too. She was like, you thought this was going to stop me?
If there's one thing Cardi knows how to do, it's perform while she's like visibly pregnant.
Period.
Like she did Coachella and was like 6 months pregnant. Like she is like, guess what? I'm still going to be on stage. I'm still going to be at the club. I'm still going to be twerking. Here I am.
Correct. You're going to get all of this. I absolutely loved it. And the photo shoots that she followed up with. I'm like, this is a rollout, ladies.
The photo was, I was like, wow, I want to have a baby. Like,
let's back that up.
I'm like, we're going to back that truck up because we're not there yet. But I was who has done an announcement like this? Beyonce. And I did see some inspiration because like the coming out, the doing it at an awards show.
And I'm pretty sure she did it at, no, she did VMAs, I think.
Yeah, she did it at VMAs.
Yeah.
But like I said, I love all of our members of the Hive.
Right. It was wonderful. I don't know how I feel about her having another child with Offset, but like, we're going to keep it moving. It's fine. I think it's funny too, because we were just talking about like, I was like, oh, you know, now that their net worth is like very similar, but like, I feel like Cardi's star is continuing to rise like a meteor, and Offset is just kind of like, just staying where he is. I'm sure that's going to cause a lot of tension, but I was wrong. Boo Boo the Fool. Also loves that Queen Latifah, they gave her the Lifetime Achievement Award for the BET Awards. Iconic. She's one of very few artists that I'm like, what can't you do? Truly. Act, sing, dance. She's doing Broadway stuff. She's doing, you know, gripping CBS dramas. I'm not going to watch it, girl, because I hate the network. But you do you.
Get that check.
Take that check. Do what you got to do. I loved that they were giving her the recognition that she truly deserves because she's killing
Talk about influential. Yeah.
Right. The reason the rap girls can even do what they're doing today is because of Queen Latifah.
Right.
They canceled her own show a little too early as well, but one of these days, I want her to have another show that was kind of like a living single-ish, where not necessarily like she's like the single person, but like I want a family dynamic with Queen Latifah in it on my TV. I would love it.
If anyone's listening, let's make it happen.
Manifest. And then there was a DMX tribute at the end. I was tearing up to, you know, stop, drop, you know, up in here, yes, Lord. Gone too soon. His story is so tragic, but wonderful testimony and stuff. And you know what? It was a really good way to honor him too. They did a really good job.
Yeah.
I think something that we can move on to.
Okay.
Is someone whose job has recently been removed.
Mm-hmm.
And that is Christopher Harrison. I don't even know that's his full name. Perhaps Christian. That might track a little bit more. Chris Harrison has kind of leaked to sources who have now leaked to the media that he'll have a new reality TV dating show once his non-compete contract is up with ABC. I don't know why I'm surprised. Maybe I'm more shocked, but not surprised is the response from me.
I think that's the one. I was not. I was surprised it was leaking so soon because I believe he has to kind of stay under the radar for about a year per his NDA sign out contract buyout. But but yeah, it says he wants to go to a rival network. He is now apparently incentivized to get revenge by having a very successful dating show. And here's the thing: when Chris Harrison first started on The Bachelor, dating shows were rare. You know, now I feel like there are so many that I'm like, good luck with that.
Right. And then so I'm wondering, like, where would he be a good fit? Because obviously it can't be one of those like younger shows like a Love Island or something on MTV. So it has to be something specifically created just for Chris Harrison and just assuming that the MAGA crowd will be strong enough to bring an audience.
I just wonder, I'm like, did Chris Harrison ever add so much to any show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, the Bachelor franchise shows, where you're like, ugh, I need him on my screen. It's so weird to me to see people say, like, I'm not going to watch now because he's gone, because I'm like, he wasn't adding anything.
Yeah, he wasn't
adding
giving what
anything.
he gave. Nothing.
Not even giving us some salt and pepper. He was really holding out.
Which, can I say that I was watching Temptation Island for the first time a couple weeks ago. I finished it. Incredible series. Would definitely recommend. Season 3 was not that good, but regardless. The host on that show, which I'm blanking. No, it's Mark L. Wahlberg. Not Mark Wahlberg, but different name. He was probably the best reality TV show host I've ever seen in my entire life. If you have not seen him, he was basically like a therapist, but as a host, who would also kind of like slightly read you every episode. And you're like, okay, damn, I didn't know you felt like that. But it was very like, I've just never seen someone approach that job like that. And so I'm like, oh, this is the standard for me now. And in comparison to Chris Harrison, it was trash. So, right. I would say good luck to him, but not. But I wanted to share before we even get into these recaps later of a couple name ideas that Reddit had for his new show.
Okay.
So, friends, you can tell me which one is your favorite, or Nicole, please, too. So we have Clan Island.
Okay.
Finding the White Person.
Love that.
Q Amore. From alt-right to alter.
Oh, I like that.
And then, of course, Make America Date Again.
Love that, too. They could put that on Newsmax. Fox News. It could be good. It could be a hit. Yeah.
I would be interested to see which network would, one, pick him up, considering the Fallout stuff of how much you're going to have to pay him. And then two, what kind of show that does that even work with that's going to compete with The Bachelor? That has to be different enough where people aren't going to be like, let me just watch The Bachelor, you know?
I just don't think it's going to be successful.
I don't either.
I would say I wish him luck, but I don't. I'm like, go ahead and try that. Let's see how it goes.
Sorry, not sorry. And one more thing for Bachelor Nation news before we get into this recap. So you might have seen it in a couple of articles. TMZ reported, also Vulture, that there are some PPP loans that were given out to influencers who were stars on the show, such as Tayshia Adams, Ari and Lauren Lyondike, Dale Moss, and I'm trying to think of the other ones who were under fire. I think those are the main three. There were a lot of other ones.
Underwood got some money too.
Colton did, and so did Peter Krause from Rachel Lindsay's season. However, I think the public are less hard on them because they have physical brick and mortar businesses, and Colton's he's not a employee of his foundation, so it went to the director and other people who were salaried and stuff, so people felt like they deserved it. However, people are getting mad because they were getting like $20,000, which, you know, most PPP loans are completely forgivable and tax-free. And so I think, you know, rightly so, people are a little bit pissed off in the sense that why are they getting essentially free money when they're rich? They're buying houses in Hawaii. They're, you know, wearing Moncler jackets and having, you know, 10 Gucci handbags. And how bad this just looks, honestly, from like a public perspective. But, you know, from the influencer side, I'm also seeing things slightly differently. So I'd love to know your own take on it.
Yeah, I definitely understand the frustration people are having. I think it's one of those situations, again, where some of that frustration would probably be better served if it were directed at the system rather than the individuals, because this is a situation where we can say, you know, like, our government let us down. Like, right. You know, we're barely getting stimulus checks to people that need them, but, you know, influencers and corporations are getting these huge breaks. Not necessarily their fault, like they're taking advantage of it. Their accountants are saying, like, this is something you should do. I don't know that I fault someone for that. It's more of I fault like the system of you could only give people $600.
Right.
But you could give, you know, that's where I think my frustration lies.
I keep going back and forth on it because, like, I know, like, as someone who has an LLC or, sole proprietorship as a business owner influencing, I can say that my business has certain money that me personally I do not have. And I'm like, how much of that is a difference here when we're looking at these people and their influencing lifestyles? Two, you don't know if they're paying people who are not full-time employees. I pay a number of contractors who I work with. I was helping my photographer while, like we weren't shooting all the time because of, like, that was when I was like, I'm not even going to leave this house type of thing. Had assistants helping me with, like, making designs and whatnot. So I had to send like 1099s. I just wasn't paying them like full-time salary things. So like maybe that's the case. I use QuickBooks for like my little payroll things or like accounting systems. And I was getting notifications like 2 or 3 times a day. Like, have you signed up for PPP yet? Have you signed up for PPP yet? So I think there's a lot of like miseducation about who it should be going to as well. Because again, my accountant said, oh, you should look into it. Same with like all the systems and stuff that I use. And, I was at the point where thankfully I was getting a lot of campaigns in 2020 where I didn't feel like I needed to do that loan. But, if I had like a financial advisor who worked with me all the time, like pushing me, like, you should definitely do this. I can't sit here and honestly say that I would not have taken that opportunity. I don't think I realized that it was like a finite amount of resources. Like, obviously there was like a fund for this specifically, but I don't know if it went through their heads that like, if they get this money, that means that someone else is not getting that money. And if it did, then, yikes. But if they're thinking of it from, this own specific standpoint of, let me just get some money, that's also a little bit selfish. It's not illegal, no, but is it ethical? Probably not. It's a moral quandary for sure.
Yeah. I think that's more of where I think the debate lies in. And so it's interesting to see some of the criticism because there's influencers outside of Bachelor Nation that have took advantage of PPP loans too, right? But it is interesting to kind of see like a lot of this anger towards, I know I saw towards Tayshia, but people don't have the same energy maybe for Lauren or for Ari.
You can already see it. And again, like for influencers, I think it also, the anger is towards the industry as a whole and saying like, oh, these people don't have jobs. Then you go out and get a job if they need money. And I'm like, are you telling that to other people who are also struggling and stuff right now? Like, I know for me, I was getting more campaigns, but there are some people whose campaigns got, they were ended, or they were like, we only have a budget for this now. And it's like, just because they already have the house and the car and the whatever physically, but if they're not still making that money coming in, like, I think it's not I don't know if it's wrong for them to say, hey, I need some help.
Right. Like, you still have to make those payments, right? Like, your mortgage is due. Your mortgage is due.
Precisely. And so I think for the Tayshia situation, it's a little bit worse because she came out and made a statement. And I was like, girl, I don't know. You should talk again. Where she was like, oh, this is going to go to money towards an assistant that I am now going to hire, meaning that you got so much work that you needed an assistant, whereas the loans were supposed to be used for people who had existing staff, employees on payroll to help them continue to live. So for her to take this and then be using it as like inflush of cash was not the move. And it'll be interesting to see how this affects their numbers and stuff kind of going forward. But it's getting a lot more backlash than I thought it was going to. So we will see.
Yeah, I thought it would be very quiet.
But nothing in Bachelor Nation is ever quiet. That's it for me for this week. Nicole, let's get into some recap talks.
All right. Well, we were on our 4th week of The Bachelorette. And this one was a bit of a doozy. We finally got the drama we had been waiting for. I do want to point out before we start that Tomi was so sure that we would not be seeing Mr. Blake Moynes until week 5.
Yeah.
She was like, it's going to get teased, but it's going to get teased over a week. And we were wrong for once because...
Okay, yeah.
We did actually see him. We did not see him with the rest of the men, but we saw more of him than I expected to see this week. I thought we were going to see the last minute and then maybe the preview. And we did actually see him this week. We got to see some conversations. So we start off the episode. The men are still mad at Thomas because He's admitted that he thought about being the Bachelor before coming here. But then we go to the group date, and we'll talk about that. So the group date was 8 guys. It was a truth or dare themed group date. The men that went are Greg, James, Andrew M, Andrew S, Connor C, Trey, Mike P, and Tyler. I was kind of confused. It reminded me a little bit of Ivan's date with Tayshia. I believe that was before their fantasy suite where they just like sat in the ice tub bath.
Yeah.
They set the Guinness World Record for longest kiss in an ice bath. And it was like, what was the purpose of this? Like, what did this give us? I
mean, they had a very similar date. I mean, like, if not similar, the exact same last season as well. So I was just kind of more mad that it was a back-to-back season and you did the exact same date.
Right. So they run around. They have to complete these challenges. The men wax each other. They whisper sweet nothings. While they're doing that, Greg like says the names of the 50 states. It was a little odd. I don't know what was happening.
Yeah. He thought that was for some reason going to turn a woman on.
He's got work to do.
Yeah.
But that's okay. They had to eat all of these like outrageous foods. They had to eat peppers and then propose, which again, like Tomi said, was very much like last season, like identical to last season's challenge. So we see that, and then we get to the evening portion of the date. Katie once again is wearing an outfit that is very Rue 21. It was like a plaid sequin blazer dress, but it looked good on her. But I was like, this is a little dated.
Another week, another time for Nicole to drag these fashion choices.
And so the real drama of this group date evening portion is Trey versus Andrew S, our king, because Trey wants to go to Katie and tell her about how Thomas is parading around the house talking about wanting to be the Bachelor. He's not here for the right reasons. Andrew S is like, give this girl some credit. She's going to see it for herself and she can handle it. Our focus right now should really be on our relationships with Katie, because talking about your drama with someone else isn't going to build that connection with Katie. So Andrew S goes in, tells Katie he knows she loves Taco Bell, has this little taco platter. They taco cheers. It was cute.
Adorbs.
Trey goes in, even though Andrew S has told him like maybe don't talk about this, and is like, hey, Thomas isn't here for the right reasons. I need to tell you. You need to know.
Look here at my PowerPoint sharing all the reasons why you should not trust Thomas.
Yes. That is the full extent of their time is spent talking about Thomas.
Yeah.
He goes back. Things kind of get heated between the men because it seems like the rest of the men on the group date agree with Trey that this needs to be brought up to Katie. Andrew S is kind of the sole person there that's like, why is this the focus of our group date? He's worried about it killing the mood of the group date, just kind of being a buzzkill. Katie comes back and she gives Trey the group date rose, kind of rewards him for, I don't want to say being a snitch, but for being a snitch, you know? Yeah. And I think it's because she has this reputation of being anti-bullying, anti-mean girls, that she feels like she has to reward him.
Yes, it was her brand. And so I think she understood that she had to give him the rose to give that validation, because that's exactly what she did on her season. However, I find the situations to be completely different, where the type of accusations that were being thrown around in the house, knowing how the show of how it is, knowing that they're 100% going to air that, there's no way they're not going to air that, of calling someone, you know, a sex worker and stuff like that, versus someone who wants to be or thought about being the Bachelor, which, mind you, she already knows. He shared all of this stuff in the date with her, like essentially to her face.
Right.
So why did you feel the need to go out of your way and share it again of like, oh, I know you heard it already, but like, let's talk about it again, even though this is like the only time we get like 5 minutes to each other for the full week. Just tell me you haven't watched The Bachelor without telling me you haven't watched The Bachelor. Like, you can tell that Andrew S has been coached by his cousin Clay in the best way of how to get the furthest, which is don't get into the drama, but still play up your personality, do whatever you need to do. But no good ever comes from being the person who's like the tattletale. It's just not going to work.
But I did think Trey kind of felt like he was going to get the rose because he was tattling. Because at one point he sits down, he says, you know, I wanted to tell her. And he says, but I also think maybe I'm going to get the rose. And so I don't know if it was a play. It wasn't a well thought out long-term play because now you're just the guy that talked about Thomas
versus the guy that she has some memory of that you really loved talking about. No, I think that he was going to get the group date rose before the night portion, because I felt like he was like super lighthearted, and his proposal or whatever was super sweet. And so I do think it was kind of a risk for him to do that. It paid off in this sense, yes, but the stakes weren't high enough for me. Thomas, like, that storyline is so tired. Like, how many seasons are we gonna have? They're here for the wrong reasons, and the reasons are just that they want to get famous and possibly be the Bachelor. Bro, that's everyone's reason here.
Right. I'm like, everybody coming on reality TV
ridiculous.
is looking for a platform and an audience.
Right.
So it wasn't worth it to me either.
Yeah.
And I was like, you got the group date rose, but now like there's nothing memorable about you aside from you talked about Thomas.
And that's why I feel really bad for Thomas, because I think he also thinks that, and why he looks so confused of like, am I the bad guy because I said it out loud?
Right.
And the answer is yes, Thomas. So now you know.
Are. So this was an interesting episode because we only saw one date in the whole 2-hour span, and it was that group date. Then Katie, is upset. She's in her room. Tayshia comes and knocks on her door and says, there's someone from my past that reached out to me, I think would be a great match for you. I know he's here for the right reasons because I know you've been worked up about that. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'd like for you to meet him. And Katie says, sure. Now, worth noting here, Katie is wearing the same outfit that she was wearing on the group date with Nick Viall when she did the confessions with the men. So I feel safe assuming that this was filmed right after that or before.
Right. Yeah, I was going to ask if you noticed that, because I was like, oh, fascinating that they're cutting this in here.
Right. So Katie walks outside to go meet this man, and it is Blake Moynes from the Glacier season. Cuts to commercial. What was interesting was everyone was like, she had to know it was Blake. And she said on Twitter she thought it was Blake or Dr. Joe. And I'm a Dr. Joe girl. I would have screamed. But she sits down, and immediately I was like, the chemistry here is instant. She admits that they've been talking via DM.
Yeah.
Kind of a Caitlyn and Nick situation, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But she does point out, she says, I would be the third time you've dated a Bachelorette.
Which I'm glad she did.
And I was glad she did. She kind of took him to task on it. And she's like, I just don't know. I'm already forming connections. He says he understands. And he's like, I just, I'm here. I wanted to take the shot. So she's like, okay, let me think about it. But they're laughing. They're joking. He tells her she looks beautiful. I mean, the chemistry was like palpable to me.
And I can also just note that in all of these situations, he has always sounded so sincere. Like, even though I know it came off a little like nice guy, where he sounded like, I read a book for Claire and I'm mad that, whatever. I get that. But like, yeah, if you put some time into trying to get to know someone and that time was cut super short, you have the right to be a little upset. And then, but like with here, he was like, yeah, I just had to try. Like, it doesn't feel manipulative at all. It just felt very open and honest.
Yeah. And so I he could be there for the wrong reasons, right? But I was like, I kind of like this vibe.
Yeah.
She's giggling as she walks off. She's like, I'll think about it. So she leaves. She goes back to her room. Thomas is still in everyone's mouth at this point. An interesting thing we learn at this point is Thomas goes to Katie's room to talk to her before the cocktail ceremony and the rose ceremony, and sits down with her. Katie looks fabulous. She's wearing a sparkly dress. I think it's the best outfit we've seen on her.
Okay.
But
from you.
It is. And she seems kind of convinced, because Thomas is like, I think the other men are jealous of me. I, really care about you. I just wanted to come to you before everything started, blah, blah, blah. He goes back. The men are furious. One of them notes that it is now midnight before they've even started the cocktail party.
Yeah.
Wild to me.
The way that they put these contestants through hell to film this show is always crazy to me, when you find out that they're only sleeping like 4 hours a day, not feeding them, like pumping them with alcohol. Like, of course it's going to be a mess.
Yes. I'm like, of course they're like all over the place.
Yeah.
The men are yelling at each other. Andrew S. is like, stop talking about Thomas. Aaron says, stop yelling at me.
Me.
Yeah. I was like, "Woo, he's yelling at everyone though." So it was I was like, "Aaron, you yell at everyone now."
Yeah, exactly. You can't
Okay.
handle the heat.
Katie shows up. She's obviously like not distraught, but she's distracted. She's like, "Sorry, I'm late. Let's do this." And the real superstar to me was single dad Michael A.
Mm-hmm.
Because he kind of is on team Andrew S. He sits down with her and he's like, "I don't want to talk about Thomas. Like, I want to talk about us. And how are you doing? How are you feeling?" And Katie seems to be so appreciative of that. She mentions that she's still thinking about their one-on-one date.
Yes.
He's excited. They're smiling. They have like a good rapport.
Which I think is always what the difference is of the people who are the ones who go in tattletale. I think it's less about making sure the lead knows what's happening, because it's up to them, eventually, and they can figure stuff out. It's more about the numbers game and understanding that, if I can find a way to get this person out, I can stay longer because my connection is clearly not that strong with the lead. But when you're someone like Michael A. or Andrew S., that's what's kind of weirded out by Greg. I think Greg, we're going to see a lot of jealousy things with him throughout this. But you could tell they're not threatened. So they're like, we don't feel the need to do something like this because we're focused on this relationship building with Katie.
Right. I know I'm going to be here next week, so
right,
I don't need to like go talk to Katie and get someone out.
Correct.
So yeah, I thought that was interesting too, and interesting that Greg was kind of like jumping up and down about Thomas too.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas just kind of exits the cocktail party and goes and sits in a separate room during this time. We don't really know what's going to happen. We get to the rose ceremony, and when she gets to the final rose, she calls Thomas down. The men are all shocked. Justin, the king of memes,
facials,
is giving us the facial expression. And so Thomas walks up to her and she holds out her hand and she says, "Your Bachelor audition ends now." And I was kind of confused because it did seem like she had so much chemistry with Thomas. Like, she seemed so into him.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it was just physically. She tells Caitlin and Tayshia privately before the rose ceremony, "I really liked him. I thought there was a connection." But she feels like she's being manipulated, so she sends him home.
I wish you could have seen how much I rolled my eyes during that scene. Twitter seemed to have loved it. Good for them. For me, I was like, this is very clearly her trying to set up her own Hannah B situation where she moves the podium. And everyone was like, "Yes, queen, gatekeep, girl boss, gaslight, whatever." And that's the kind of vibe she was trying to put out there when the villain was not that serious. It was not a Luke P type of energy that you needed to bring. You're mad at him for honestly answering the question and being upfront with you, saying exactly what everyone else is thinking. And I think you only have an issue with it now because everyone else has an issue with it.
That was my thought. I was like, she was fine with him last week when he said this to her face.
Mm-hmm.
It was like when all the guys were like, "Oh, this is upsetting." Then she was like, "Oh, this is upsetting."
Yeah.
So I don't want to say I felt bad for Thomas, but I kind of did. It felt like everyone was ganging up on him. So he seemed very confused because, of course, she called him down with the rose and then she said, "Get out of here." So I felt bad for him.
It reminded me of Alea from Peter's season, where people were ganging up on her because she was nice and she smiled too much.
Right. They said she her voice changed or something like that. And I was like,
she's like, she smiles too much when the cameras are around. And I'm like, so you want her to have RBF when she's on TV?
No one's doing that. No one's doing that. So we end the episode with Katie leaving the rose ceremony. She goes back to the hotel. She goes down to Blake's room, knocks on the door. He opens the door naked. On Twitter, he said it was 5 a.m. when she knocked on the door.
Oh, okay. But didn't he say he just got out of the shower?
Yeah, we don't know.
Is he doing 4 a.m. workouts, shower? I mean, probably.
Probably, but he did say,
an animal.
Like, why didn't you have any clothes on? And he was like, it was 5 a.m. That's why I was half asleep. So, but yeah, he says he gets out of the shower and she is very flirtatious. And she's like, "If you want to do this, I want you here." She says, "I have to follow my heart and I want you on this journey with me." So he will be moving into the house next week. That's going to be drama.
Mm-hmm.
We're excited for him. Preview for next week is mostly centered around the men not liking that he's there, Blake not caring. But one of the things we do see is that Andrew S. is going to be getting a one-on-one date.
Let's go, Andrew S. Nation! Burr, 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 burr. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Any other thoughts on the episode?
I, like we have said from the beginning, cannot wait to see their chemistry continue to unfold because they make so much sense on paper, just personality-wise. It's both confident, both like to make those little like crass jokes, both love their animals. So on paper, yeah, they seem to make sense. Like age-wise, they're very close as well. I think is he 29 or 30?
Yeah.
Also? Yeah, so it's like, it seems pretty good. But it will just be interesting to see how it works because, again, producers do not like when the other person comes back and makes it far or wins. Like, they're just going to find some way to kind of throw a wrench in it. But I did want to share, which I don't think is a spoiler because it was in a bunch of magazines and stuff whenever it was shared, but they ended filming early, like a week. I don't know if it was a week or 2 weeks early.
A week.
For
and
this
I just
season.
thought about it. We did talk about this when we did like the preview for the season.
Yeah. Okay. So good. So I think you could feel that very much with this episode because there's only the one group date, you know, missing a lot of one-on-ones. I'm like, is this even like, this is episode 4 or 5 of The Bachelorette. And I'm like, I think it's only the second week because of how much they've had to like space stuff out and they're trying to make a lot of stuff happen because they're missing that last final week of things. And so I think you could really feel it in this episode and it kind of dragged on a bit, but now we're getting to the good stuff. I wish she had kept Thomas, honestly, just for the mess of it all. But that's just me. Sorry.
I think we'll see Thomas soon.
Oh, yeah. Something tells me for sure. That's all I've got, though.
Okay. What else? Anything else before we jump into Rose of the Week?
No. Oh, and what a great question to have. I'll let you go first.
Well, I hadn't thought of mine yet, so give me a moment.
Oh, Lord. We can,
You know what? Mine is going to go to Hunter and Tara.
Who?
They are a couple on the U.S. Olympic team.
Mm-hmm.
He's a Paralympic. She is a long jump. We've got some swirly. She's Black Girl Magic personified. But they are very cute. I follow them on TikTok, and there's some speculation that he might propose at the Olympics.
As he should. That'd be magical.
I know. But they met at a track meet 4 years ago. I believe he ran for Arkansas and she ran for Texas, or was on the Texas track and field team. And she saw him at a meet, went up to him, started talking to him, and he was like, and that was it for me. They have a YouTube channel. They're really cute. I've been deep diving. I'm ready for the Olympics.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm obsessed with that story. I can't imagine the type of pressure it is to be the offspring of 2 Olympic athletes or just 2 like intense athletes like that anyway. Like even Serena's child, I'm like, are you going to be okay, girl? Olympia?
I think so.
Love to.
She seems like a star already, honestly.
Yeah, pretty much. My Rose of the Week. I think I'm going to give it to Lil Nas X because the balls that it takes to do what he did consistently, I'm very proud of him. Great way to cap off Pride Month. He's doing things out here, and I'm excited to continue to see his star rise and what he'll do. His dancing needs some work. I'll tell you that. But maybe he was nervous, but I think I'll tweak some improvement. But that's my Rose of the Week for his performance on the BET Awards.
He killed it. He was nervous, but he killed it.
So also our review of the week is from Beer and Ball saying, I freaking love Nicole and Tomi together. The podcast is a perfect mix of scandalous celeb gossip and a rundown of Bachelor episodes. I love their hot takes and every episode makes me laugh so much. Never miss an episode. Makes my week.
Aww.
5 stars. Thank you so much. That was wonderful. And that made my week.
Same. So thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe or listening to. So be sure to subscribe on your listening platform. Rate and review. We love reading those reviews every week. And
follow us on Instagram at Content Culture Pod.
Yes. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.